Welcome back to the Teaching Tax Flow podcast. We are here. We are at the end of 2024. So as we go into a new year, we picked a great topic from our Teaching Tax Flow community, and that is called the Taxpayer Timeline. So we're going to go through this, Chris and myself, dive into some details, but more importantly, you're going to leave this episode way smarter than you came into it as. So before we jump into the topic today, let's take a brief moment and thank our episode sponsor.
This podcast is sponsored by The Mortgage Shop. Are you looking to qualify for an investment credit loan without jumping through hoops? That's easy. They have loans with LTV up to 89.99%. Exploring their products and discovering how they can work for you is simple. Just visit mortgage.shop or call 865-325-2566 and tell them TTF sent you.
Hey everybody, welcome back. The very last podcast of 2024. We're here. We did it. We survived another year. God, we are cranking through these things. Chris, I can't believe we've just done 113, 114, 115 of these things. And I think we have more and more fun as we go along. So, I got to say it because I haven't said in a few episodes. Welcome back to your own show, sir. How are you?
Thank you. It feels good. And we are closing out 2024 here today. You might be listening to this in 2025. We don't know. Maybe you'll listen in 24. And Happy New Year, or Happy New Year coming up.
Yeah.
Had a great year here on the Teaching Tax Flow podcast. Hard to believe we're at episode, 118, 120, somewhere in that range. And I think we're picking up even more momentum, and we're so fortunate to have all the guests and all the people in our community. And since it's the last day of the year, I thought it'd be a good idea for us to kind of to walk through the calendar year for a taxpayer. Because there's so many dates going on in the tax preparation or tax world. So I want to walk through the key dates for taxpayers or small business owners for them to remember. And there's especially an interesting wrinkle with federal quarterly estimated tax payments too.
And we did a great show just on that one specifically. And I'll kind of set the groundwork, I guess, a little bit for this one. So we're going to power through these things. We know it's the end of the year. You've got great things to do. And frankly, who wants to look forward past January 1st at this moment? So even if, Kirsty mentioned, even if you're listening to this afterwards, we got some great dates. And believe it or not, I'll put this out there. There's probably a lot more important dates on this for anybody that's listening. I almost bet you don't know them, unless you're a tax pro. If you're already a tax pro, you cannot cheat and say that you know them because this is your job. If you don't know them, go back to school. But I do want to throw one thing out, Chris, and then I'll hand the mic over to you and let you run with this thing like you're in a relay race. But I feel like we as taxpayers have been so conditioned that there's one date in the entire year called tax day, right? And we kind of tend to forget about all this other stuff. And, it could really get you. It can catch up to you. So let's run through these things as a top. And I know what you're going to say.
I'm going to make an accusation, though. I'm going to make an accusation that you want to, one, get under my skin by calling it tax day, and two, you want to focus on that day because that's your birthday.
It is. You know what I do appreciate, though? I do really appreciate the fact that the IRS kind of moved it off of that a little bit, right? Because was it 23 and 24? It wasn't on the 15th. They moved it like the 17th, or so it's like the next business day, right?
All of the dates we're going to discuss today are movable if it falls on a weekend or if there is a holiday on that day. So for instance, where there's a date in January that sometimes Martin Luther King Day, your birthday sometimes falls on what's called Emancipation Day. So if there's a federal holiday or a weekend, the due date will bump to the next business day. Also, there are certain situations when you're in a disaster recovery area that due dates could get moved. So let's say you're in an area that was hit by a hurricane or a tornado. What we're going to talk through today are the standard dates for a taxpayer. There are always exceptions to these rules.
Well, we know the IRS listens to this. In fact, I'm not joking. All things aside, I actually do know one person who is an amazing human being. works for the is it the tax advocacy
Taxpayer
program? Or whatever.
advocacy service.
That's it. She actually listens to this, which I appreciate. I will not say your name or the location you're in, but I know you listen to it because you tell me this. Maybe we can throw this up the chain because you opened the door up when you said
Ooh.
if it falls on a holiday. Well, isn't my birthday every year a holiday? So why in the world do they
I know.
try to stick with this date, man? These guys are delusional, right? They're forgetting that.
I don't know, John, but I think we should talk to your friend to get her on the podcast.
She's probably afraid to get that conversation with. I think anybody that's tied to the government is probably terrified of us. In a good
we're
way.
Luke
More or
Cannon.
less me. You're reserved, and again, you bring the brains to it. I think it's me and not having a filter or not knowing what I'm talking about half the time, which is why you're here, is what makes it fun. But that's all.
Well,
good.
let's jump into these dates. We're going to start chronologically, right? So it's New Year's Eve right now. You're going to listen to this probably in 2025. Hopefully you find yourself happy and healthy. And we find ourselves in the middle of January with the first date, January 15th, which is close to my birthday, John. A couple things are that due that day. One major thing is due that day. And this is where things get a little tough to comprehend. Your fourth quarter federal estimated tax payment from the year before is due on January 15th. So by your fourth quarter estimated tax payment is due for 2024 is due January 15th of 2025, which makes sense, right? Because until the year ends, you might not know what your exact business profit is, what your income is, and how much your estimated tax payment should be. So January 15th, fourth quarter estimated tax payment due date for the previous year. Now, the next major date applies to S corporations and partnerships. Remember, S corporations file a Form 1120S, and then entities that file as a partnership could be a general partnership, a limited partnership, or a limited liability company with more than one member, multi-member LLCs. Those are your common entities that file as a partnership. That due date is really tricky. It's March 15th. And if you don't file on time, there's an approximately $200 per partner or per S Corp shareholder per month penalty for not filing on time. I would say in our private practice, the vast majority of S Corps and partnership returns do not file by March 15th. However, you can easily get a 6-month extension by filing a Form 7004. So a lot of times people that are new that have an S corporation and they're new to it, they think that the S Corp is due on April 15th with their personal return. And I can't tell you how many times they've missed it and got a letter from the IRS penalizing them. So March 15th, S Corp and partnership due date. And that makes sense, right? Because those entities are creating K1s that report each shareholder or each member or each partner's share of the income, deductions, and credits. We need to have those before we can prepare a personal return. So they can't be due on the same date, or else you would just have a big problem.
And actually, I know our last episode was, gifts from the IRS. We don't have to dive into all the extensions, but that's a pretty significant gift to S Corps and partnerships is a 6 months extension. But the trick with that is, right, is you actually have to file the extension before the due date, right?
Absolutely. So yes, you got to file the extension. So March 15th, S Corps partnership returns. Now, the next date, the aforementioned Johnny Tripolsky birthday.
Happy birthday.
Oh boy. Hey, don't quit your day job.
I'm not. Don't worry.
I gotta. Whenever my daughter sings, just to get under her skin, I tell her, "I'm so happy you're in theater." I mean, some people in theater sing, but not in our family. April 15th. This is the date that has the most amount of items associated with it. One, it's the individual tax return deadline. Okay. Now, again, remember, you can just get a tax extension if you would like by filing a Form 4868 or filing one online, which gives you an extra 6 months. But that is the individual tax return due date for the previous year. Two, it's also the due date of your first quarter estimated tax payment. So April 15th, 2025. Will be whatever your profit was or income between January and March. If you have to pay estimated tax payments, that's the due date of the estimated tax payment. Now, typically, so you have both of those things due on the same day. It's also the due date for IRA contributions from the previous year and health savings account contributions for the previous year. If you owe tax, this is the due date for the tax you owe, even if you file an extension. And C corporations, the due date for those returns are April 15th. Now, when I first started in this business, C corps are due in March and partnerships are due in April, and those got switched, which was smart. With the C corporation, you can easily get a 6-month extension as well. You just have to request it. So individual return, first quarter estimate, C Corp due date, IRA and HSA contribution deadline, those cannot be extended. And then payment of any tax due from the previous year. So lots going on April 15th, not just your birthday, John.
It happens, but another little bonus from the IRS too is if you don't happen to have any checks laying around, just a little reminder, we talked about this in previous episodes, you can make all these payments online, direct on the IRS's website. It's like a very easy thing to do. So you don't have to worry about postmark and all that.
IRS.gov, I believe, I have an account that I make payments right directly to the IRS, and it just makes life a little easier. Now things get tricky on these personal estimated tax payments, right? Because you think they're quarterly. The first quarter is due in April. This is probably the most missed. The next two things are the most missed. The second quarter payment for individuals is June 15th. You're thinking, shouldn't it be July? I know, but it's June. So June 15th. So you're going to pay tax in the second quarter for whatever your income or profit was for just April and May. Usually the second federal quarterly estimated tax payment is due June 15th, not July 15th. So be very aware of that. The third quarterly payment, you're thinking, logically, you would think, oh, that's due October 15th, right? No, that's due September 15th. I know it's very odd, but
do you mean the government doesn't have everything in a very organized, makes sense plan? Shocking.
I know, it's a little nutty. So September 15th is going to be your third quarterly payment due date. And it's also the filing deadline for any of your S corporation or partnership returns that file an extension. So September 15th is a huge day for tax professionals and business owners. October 15th is even a bigger day in some ways. That's the filing deadline for any of the tax returns, personal returns that are on extension, and C Corp returns on extension. So September 15th and October 15th, very, very important days in the tax preparation world. So for October 15th, final deadline for extended personal returns and extended C corporation tax returns. Now you might think, oh, it's December 31st. Anything going on today? Well, sure. It's the last day of the year, but it's also the final day for making RMDs. So if you're taxpayers that are mature aged, basically 73 or older, that are required to take money out of their retirement accounts, that's why it's called a required minimum distribution. Or if someone that has inherited an IRA or retirement account, this is the final day to take those distributions. And the penalty for not taking those distributions, it did go down a little bit from 50% to 25%, is still significant. And then obviously this is the last day to implement any type of last second tax planning opportunities. The most popular one is going to be your tax loss harvesting. So if you have capital losses in your brokerage accounts and you're trying to sell, you've got till today. Or if you're making charitable contributions, today's your final day to get those in before the end of the year. Make sure those are postmarked if you're mailing them, or it's just easy to make the contribution electronically.
I think last year around this time, I made the same joke, and I don't know why this just clicked with me, but we didn't use the example of, actually in this episode, or even for the past couple months, I don't think I pulled the example out, of, oh, well, I'm at the bar, it's 11:55 p.m. on the 31st. What can I still do? I don't know if you remember that from last year. I think I said it too much, and that it just, it became like my own personal brand was clearly everybody thinks I'm at the bar drinking at 11:59 when you have a toddler at home and you actually go to sleep about 9 and you play last year's replay. And so they think they seen it, or the ball drop. But this was awesome, man. I'm glad we ran through these, because we get asked these a lot, and, I'll go ahead and I'll make sure that our team posts these dates in the show notes as well. It'll be pretty lengthy, so depending on what device you're looking at, it might not show up exactly correct. But again, they're variable dates for the most part. Because you mentioned holidays, etc. on there. It's next business day. Just mark your calendar. And what I did, I don't know if it's helpful for everybody else, is actually go in your calendar, and technology is a beautiful thing. Just set it to recur annually with a reminder like 7 days or 20 days before, and then if that date changes. It's a very easy thing to do because, as we know, we all got so much stuff going on. We'll tend to forget some of these, right?
Very smart. Happy New Year. Thank you for listening to the podcast. We're so excited about this year coming up. And yeah, we gave it, you know what? We did a little bit shorter podcast this week because we want you to spend more time with your family.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned in the new year, we didn't actually talk about this for a while, but this has been in the works for a couple years, really based off of people asking us for something. We're basically in the business of providing information and resources. And that being so, if anybody listening to this is actually looking for a tax professional, we made a great domain name. Very easy to find. It's just 2025.tax. So 2025.tax. We actually are going to start offering a service here in a couple days. So get on that list. You can really tap into the resources through Teaching Tax Flow, as well as Chris's private practice and other ones too. So basically, what it is in a nutshell is we're offering some direct tax prep services and strategy and planning. So it's something to definitely take advantage of. You fill out this form. It's very quick, very easy, very short for the most part, and it's non-binding. So even if you wonder if this is good for you, fill it out, talk to our team, figure it out, and go from there. But even more important than that, can definitely not close out on a pitch of what we're doing. This is about you, not us. Have a good night. Have a good day. Have a great rest of the year as it winds down. And let's get into 2025. And to close it out, I normally say the same thing over and over again. I'm just going to say we'll see you guys next year. So thank you so much for everybody joining us here on the Teaching Tax Flow podcast.
The content provided is for educational purposes only. We encourage you to seek personalized investment advice from your financial professional. For all tax and legal advice, please consult your CPA or attorney. Investment advisory services are offered through Cabin Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cabin Securities, a registered broker-dealer. The content of this podcast does not constitute an offer of securities. Offerings can only be made through an offering memorandum, and you should carefully examine the risk factors and other information contained in the memorandum.